You are listening to SFL Radio.
You're listening to the Owner's Box podcast on SFL Radio. Now here's the host of the S.O.B. and my bongo playing compadre, Stephen Mullinax. All right.
Welcome to the SFL Owner's Box. The S.O.B. is a weekly 30-minute podcast that covers all the headline-worthy topics from this week in the Simulation Football League, a.k.a. the SFL. For the uninitiated, the SFL is the ultimate sim football experience that features real-life users as players, coaches, and owners. Other features include a live commentated SFL Red Zone, where you can watch 5 games at once with in-depth pre-game and post-game shows live on YouTube. There's also a Game of the Week shown in its entirety with a live 2-man commentary crew, full stat tracking provided by DAC staff, fantasy football, and much, much more. Find out how you can get involved at simulationfl.com. That's simulationfl.com. On today's show, we're going to talk about 15 interesting stats and facts from the first 2 weeks of the SFL regular season. I'll also have an in-depth interview with Tallahassee Pride owner and the visionary behind our fantasy football this season in the SFL, Frank Goodin. We'll talk about his team's early success, adding Pate to his coaching staff, and silver running backs, and much, much more. But first, let's shoot it over to the rundown.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
What did he just say?
Before we get into those 15 interesting SFL facts and stats, I want to talk a little bit about the games over week 2. First of all, the game of the week was my Dallas Roughnecks versus the Alaska Storm. After week 1, I thought this game would have been a lot closer than it was. I was happy to see that the defense was able to hold the Storm to only 4 field goals. It seems that, I have a biased take here, so take that into an account, but just viewing it just as an observer, that the Roughnecks offense was clicking a lot better than it was in week 1, and once they got up by a couple touchdowns, it just seemed the onus of trying to get back into the game for the Storm's offense was just too great. Let's go to the next game. Tallahassee over Carolina. The Pride over the Skyhawks, 31-24. This game was a lot closer than I think a lot of us thought it would be, especially since Tallahassee was coming off that 52-13 win over St. Louis in week 1. Both teams struggled offensively there in the first half. I thought Johnny English was really the Skyhawks' lone bright spot there in the first half, as they used him and as both a runner and as a receiver. He was their most effective weapon. But the Skyhawks had a hard time in that first half connecting on those bigger chunk plays, and that started going for them in the second half, and they were one play away from tying the game, possibly winning the game up. So Tallahassee squeaks by on this one, but they are still the only team that's 2-0 right now, and possibly the most balanced team in the league. Queen City over St. Louis, 55-20. In this game, if you would have told me that one team on the defensive side of the ball had a gold and 2 silvers on its defensive line, I would have told you, based on this game, that team was the Corsairs. Their ability to get to the quarterback, especially there in the fourth quarter, was crazy. I'm not sure the experiment so far, it's only been 2 games, but the Gladiators' experiment there with investing so heavily in that defensive line isn't paying off as of yet. me and Frank Goodin here in the interview that's coming up here momentarily, we talk a little bit about that. Frank's very positive about what this Gladiators team can be, having played them in week 1. Mexico City defeated Houston which was a total flip-flop game for me. In the first half, the Aztecs quarterback Matt Wilson was the one with the turnovers, two interceptions, and it looked like Houston was in pretty firm control in the first half. And then in the second half, Mexico City's Chris Davis takes the opening kickoff of that second half for a touchdown, and then it just flips. The narrative flipped, and then all of a sudden it was Houston's quarterback Cody Cantrell who started throwing interceptions, and he just never stopped. Baltimore got a win over Sioux Falls, which, after watching both teams in week 1, that was a surprising outcome for me. I thought Sioux Falls had kind of cracked the code a little bit as their non-star running back and basically lack of stars on the offensive end seemed to work fine in week 1, and honestly in week 2 as well, because this was a very close game, 24-17. And Baltimore losing in week 1 was a little bit of a head scratcher to me. So I knew that running that 4 wide receiver offense, although they don't run it like you would expect a 4 wide receiver offense to be run. A lot of their offense is going through their brand new running back. But in this game, it was almost there at the end. It was about 2 yards away. Sioux Falls was 2 yards away from tying this game up in those last waning moments. It was very close. Finally, Sharknado 3. LA finally gets a win over Oklahoma City. I believe they met, Sharknado 3 means they met 2 other times. And I believe, and Doug Bose will absolutely correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the Renegades have won both of those previous outings. But the Sharks get on top here, and watching that game, and coming off a loss from Oklahoma City, I knew what they brought, especially defensively, was substantial. And that Hamby kid, the rookie wide receiver, he could be easily, the early favorite for Rookie of the Year right now, I think. But for me, the Sharks win 34-24, but there was a fourth quarter interception that really turned it for me, and I think it really turned the game, and it gave the Sharks. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was actually 2 late turnovers that put the Sharks in really good field position and really handed this game over to them at the end. Not that they didn't earn it, but there were definitely some mistakes made by Red Feather there at the end of the game that cost his team any chance of competing there at the end. So that was week 2. Let's get to some of these interesting facts that I have found here. Number 1, Tallahassee Pride have scored 11 touchdowns through 2 games this season. 7 touchdowns versus St. Louis in week 1, and 4 touchdowns versus Carolina in week 2. Number 2, there is currently a tie for the top rusher in the SFL. Both LA's Doug Bose and Carolina's Johnny English have 292 rushing yards in 2 games. Number 3, Houston's wide receiver DR Sim leads all receivers in catches with 18. That's despite having played only 1 game this season. Number 4, Sioux Falls receiver Jalen Miller leads the league in receiving yards with 405 in 2 games. Oklahoma City's Caleb Hamby is right behind them with 398. Number 5, Mexico City's Chris Davis had 560 all-purpose yards in their win over Houston in Week 2. Davis had 216 receiving yards and 344 return yards. Despite playing just one game, he is number 1 in the SFL in all-purpose yardage. Number 6. Vegas's Rick O'Reilly still leads the league in sacks after Week 2. He's got 4.5 sacks on the season. That's despite being on a bye week in Week 2. Dallas has the most sacks as a team with 9 total. Number 7. Pride silver running back J. Calvin Kim leads the SFL in rushing touchdowns with 5. Last season, Kim tied for second most in the league with 15 touchdowns as a bronze running back. Number 8. Bronze linebacker Heath McDaniel Sr. leads the SFL in pass deflections / breakups with 6. He plays for the Dallas Roughnecks. Ironically, last season, Roughneck linebacker Bones Malone led the league in that exact same category with 18. Number 9, and speaking of Bones Malone, the now bronze linebacker leads the league in total tackles with 26 in 2 games. He currently plays for the Tallahassee Pride. Number 10. The Gladiators' 3 star defensive linemen, 1 gold defensive tackle, and 2 silver defensive ends have combined for a total of 18 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, and 1.5 sacks in 2 games. St. Louis has been outscored by their opponents 107-33 in those first 2 games. Number 11. Oklahoma City's Remy Piper leads all SFL tight ends with 11 receptions. He's a bronze. The Renegades' gold tight end, Tiberius Bovine, has recorded just 2 receptions for 12 yards in those same 2 games. Number 12. There have been 3 kickoff returns for scores through the first 2 weeks of the season. There was 1 in Week 1, Jace Jefferson for the Sparrows versus Carolina, and 2 in Week 2, the Aztecs' Chris Davis versus Houston, and Alaska's Stevie T. Diggs versus Dallas. Number 13. The Pride currently lead the league in third down conversion rate, 68.2%, yes, 15 of 22 on third down so far this year. Number 14, the opposite of that, the Sharks defense currently prevents the most third down conversions, 31.8%. They have only allowed 7 of 22 conversions. And finally, number 15. Only 2 teams have had to face their first 2 opponents blind. And when I mean blind, I mean with no game film to judge of this season. That's the 1-1 Aztecs and the 0-2 Gladiators. Hope you enjoyed some of these interesting stats and facts. Now I'd like to go ahead and present my interview with Tallahassee Pride owner and head coach, the newly named Professor Frank Goodin. Hope you enjoy. Let me welcome to the show here Frank Goodin. Frank, my good friend, Professor Goodin now. Tell me, Frank, what started this whole idea about bringing fantasy football to the SFL, and tell me a little bit about the process that it took to make that dream a reality.
Oh man, so fantasy football is something that Cam will tell you. I believe we took a stab at it a few seasons ago, and as you well know, fantasy football seems to go just hand in hand with football. Years ago, when I first started playing, this was in the late before the turn of the century. It was really just this tremendous way for me to be able to connect, to a greater level with the NFL players. You start out being a team guy, but then when you play fantasy football, you really do get to know what the players are capable of. You find yourself tracking individually how well players are doing on different teams that you would never have been exposed to. And so that was tremendous for me in helping to grow my love for the NFL. So, when the opportunity came to really explore trying to do that for the SFL, I was like, we've got to do this. We really feel like, I really felt like it would help the average fan and even folks who are deep into the SFL experience really connect and add a level of immersion to what the already great experience that the SFL offers.
Well, have you been pleased by the results you've seen so far? I know we're only 2 weeks in, but what kind of feedback have you been getting from the community?
Well, I think it's positive. We've got a lot of folks playing, and what I love is that the ones who are playing, they're interacting in a way that we kind of anticipated, which is, if a certain player does really well, we're hearing about it in the chat. You're on my fantasy team. I love it. Go. I've got that guy proudly, exclaiming their players. And that's exactly what we want because, unlike the NFL, all of the players in the SFL, we're accessible. We're right here in the community. So it makes that player feel even that much more special when you have your colleagues rooting you on and, kind of digging at you. If a running back didn't get that touchdown or if a defensive back didn't make the play or get the pick, you're hearing about it in the chat. And that's exactly the kind of immersion that we were looking for.
Well, we know it's still fresh and it's still new, and there are a lot of improvements likely here on the horizon. Can you tell us some of those that you see, maybe some of your own personal goals and dreams for the interactive platform, how it's going to be like in the future, immediately and maybe even into the next coming seasons?
Yeah, well, I'm very open. For me, it's not necessarily about my own personal, even though of course there are things that I would love to improve, but it's just really about serving the SFL community and trying to bring to the community the features that you guys want, that we want. So, I deliberately kind of created the engine and the site in a way that was bare bones. We just wanted to be able to get the full idea out and execute it so that, you could easily make your teams and you can easily understand how to build the teams and, easily be able to identify who wins and that kind of thing. Well, now that that's done, I guess you could say 2.0 or the next stage will be adding some of these features that, I just didn't think of when we built the site in the first place. Like, simple stuff, making sure that on the actual site, the teams are listed right next to the players and, little things that would aid in making the teams and just ease of access, ease of use type things. So I encourage the entire SFL community to, as you're playing, don't hesitate if you feel like there's something that you want to see added or something that could be done better. Please do so because, I'm open to that and, we want to make it good for everybody.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Tallahassee Pride. Of course, you're the owner of the Tallahassee Pride. You joined back the SFL back in Season 5, and you made the postseason in each of your first 2 seasons. Let's see, in the last 3 seasons, you were 6-2, 75, and then 3-9 last season. So, in your mind, where did things get off track last season for the Pride and why?
Yeah. We were very proud to, be a consistent playoff bound team there at the beginning. And basically what happened, or I'm pretty sure, it was just the build. I sort of set my mind that I wanted to create a defensive build where we, sort of hang our hat, if you will, on just stopping teams and, being able to kind of ball control and get just enough points on the board to beat you. And I oversold it. I just went for it a little bit too hard. I knew I was gambling the season on it, but basically when you create a team build where you just restrict your offense like that, then you got to be prepared for teams to be able to shut it down. I had such faith in my running back at the time, Dwayne Lane. I felt like he could really, churn out the steady yards. I felt like I would be able to kind of pull it off. But teams figured this out really quick and shut Lane down. So we didn't have a backup. There was no way to pivot offensively once that happened. So, so I paid the price.
Well, like you said, last season you did seem to have a focus on the running game, promoting Dwayne Lane from silver to gold. And this season now you've dropped back down to a silver running back again with J. Calvin Kim, and he's having an excellent season. In his first game, 140 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, only 11 carries against the Gladiators. So are you the silver running back guru? What's going on with that silver playing better than a gold? What's up with that?
I'll take it. I like the ring of that. The silver running back whisperer for sure. I feel like I've found a build that works, the kind of build that works for a silver running back that works. And, the key is having as much of a balanced attack around to allow those skills to flourish. And, I immediately fell back on that experience that we had with Dwayne Lane back in season 6. So yeah, I'll definitely take it. It feels good to hear that.
Well, let's go over those. Let's go ahead and compare those two team builds from last year and this year. The main changes anyway. So the previous season, when you went 3-9, you had a gold running back, 2 silver cornerbacks, and 2 bronze tight ends. You only had 1 star wide receiver. Now this year, and you're 2-0, you've got a gold tight end, a silver running back, only 1 bronze cornerback. One of your cornerbacks is a non-star, and 2 bronze defensive ends. So what was the thought process behind these massive changes?
Well, the main change was I wanted to get back. I never wanted to be in that same position of being crippled offensively. That's a bad feeling. As you know, I went, I believe, 3-9 last season. It's a bad feeling where game after game you need your offense to you need them to do something, and they're trying and you're scheming, right? But, the offensive players are dropping balls or not being able to, just missing that crucial play that could have been made, that could have turned the game. So I never wanted to go back. Experience is a good teacher. You just never wanted to go back to that. So I wanted to make sure that the offense was a potent offense. And so, as in last season where the thinking was, we're going to get more stops than you, and that's how we're going to win. This season, it's more of, we're just going to score more than you. We're going to get more offensive opportunities to score than you. And you're just going to we're going to see if you can do that. Can you outscore us? Can you get in those better situations offensively? And so that was the thinking. And then it was just, I never want to try to duplicate someone else's team build or someone's approach that I've seen. It's very rare to have to feature a gold tight end in this league up to this point, and that's where the ego comes in a little bit. I wanted to give this a try. That's what happened last year that got me in trouble. So I want to give this a try. I want to do it my way.
Yeah.
So that's where the gold tight end came in, and so far so good.
Yeah. Oh, so far so good. Really good. You're talking about putting some points on opponents there in week 1, the 52-13 shellacking of the Gladiators in St. Louis, which is in their home stadium, in their not only their regular season opener but their franchise opener. We both know it's hard to get a win on the road here in the SFL, but a blowout is almost unheard of. Were you surprised by the outcome?
Yeah, I was surprised. You didn't quite. You go in definitely planning for the win, and we're feeling pretty good about getting the win. But the actual results, we definitely were surprised that we were able to get off as many of the big plays, especially deep, against that team when they're just ferocious right up front there. That D-line is crazy. So yeah, but I only attribute that to simply it's a new franchise, and as you well know, if you're a new franchise and you're just getting started, it can be tough to get build yourself to the level of SFL competition here. And so I think that it'll just be a quick study for them. So I was surprised, but when you look at it, you see what happened here in week 2 when they played Queen City. They had similar things. So there's just some minor adjustments to the approach that that team needs to make. I think they really should feature, just coach to coach, I would say, and this is just one person's opinion, I would say they really need to try to accentuate that pass rush.
Right.
And make sure, since that's what they're betting on, putting
Right.
all that talent on the line, they need to make sure teams cannot get the ball off deep and just make them play a short game by constantly harassing that quarterback. And if it's not happening, they got to make that happen, because they will get exposed if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, especially considering they're trying something that's risky, kind of experimental, with that much of an investment on the defensive line. Starting your franchise off that, you've got to expect there are going to be some bumps in the road.
That's right.
So, hey, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that you've watched the Week 2 game. I know the outcome. So I watched that entire game as well. Probably a lot closer than you thought than you wanted it to be. Going right down to the very last play, interception in the end zone to stop them from tying, possibly if they went for 2 and got it, winning that ball game. I think for me, watching it, Johnny English was their main and maybe lone offensive weapon in the first half. They just couldn't throw deep on you. But then they started to connect on those deep passes, had some big chunk plays in the second half that really got them in that ball game. But really, both offenses struggled in the first half. And then, as we've seen a lot in SFL games here, there's kind of an offense explosion in the second half. So you are the only 2-0 team right now in the league. After what are your initial thoughts after watching that game last night?
Oh, it was you talk about, the heart racing, exciting, hanging on every play, especially at the end. Can't believe that they're making. You thought you had the game in hand, and then the Carolina compliments to that entire team, the coordinators and the staff, and the way those players played, fighting their way back and almost stealing it in our house. It was amazing to watch. I was definitely in it, and I really thought they were gonna actually pull it off, because you're that close. I'm like, man, they're gonna get this steal and get this win in our house, and we have such a great rivalry with that team. So yeah, it was just a great game. You're talking about, of course, the Skyhawks. Just much respect to them. We were able to hold on and get that, like you said, very last play. Our face of the franchise was able to get a little icing with his cake, because he played a good game, the whole time, and to get that tipped interception right at the end, what a fitting game for us.
And the thing that I've seen out of your offense, really this season, is how balanced it is. And so I'm wondering, can you tell us, what kind of influence Thomas Paternetti has had on your team this season, on the offensive side, obviously, because he's your offensive coordinator, right?
Yes. Let me tell you, everybody listening, listen, the T-Pat effect is real. The T-Pat effect is real. I am so happy to have him on as OC. He brings a work ethic and a knowledge of the game with him that, up to this point, with my experience, is unparalleled. As you can tell, his pedigree is evident, being a 2-time SFL champion, and he shows it. When we get together and we do our game planning together, I'm just amazed at his work ethic and how thorough he knows the offense. He truly is a guru. It's great working with him, and so he together we were able to really fashion an offensive attack that because I sold him on a few things myself. It definitely was a team effort. There were a couple things that I wanted to feature, like the running back, for example, that for T-Pat, he's just not something that he focuses on. Everybody knows he loves to pass the ball. So I was able to incorporate some of the running principles and a few defensive principles, and that tight end. He's never really got the chance to work with a talented tight end. And so it's just been nothing but a pleasure working with T-Pat. He brings it, and he completely has added to this team.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, and you can tell me if it's a coincidence or not, but your defensive side of the ball seems to have been influenced by him as well. You guys going from 2 silver cornerbacks the previous season to 1 bronze and a non-star on the other side of him. That's exactly what they did with the Maulers last year. Did T-Pat have anything influence on that?
He has had influence in execution. I actually had that game plan going in to roll with the 1 bronze. And then there were a few other aspects that were sort of up for debate earlier. Like when I came in, when he actually joined the team, I had already had the team build almost completely assembled, but we had leeway in a couple areas. The cornerback wasn't one. But what was great is that since I had already made that decision, and you have T-Pat coming in from his championship run, having experience rolling with that 1 cornerback with his team and winning it all, he was able to bring that, port that right over into some of the defensive philosophies that we have, and really he has had major influence not only on the offense but on the defense as well, major.
So staying with the team build now, you're now looking at your complete overall team build. What do you think makes the Pride a difficult matchup for opposing teams?
I think you said it. It relates to the balance. Offensively, we are, I think, and this is just, again, kind of a coach's perspective. Offensively, we are forcing teams to have to, sort of pick a poison. How do you want to play us? What do you think you want to take away? Or do you want to try to take it all away and live with the results? This is offensively, because this is where we're hanging our hat on. If you want to try to take away, those deep throws, sort of like what we were able to accomplish against the Gladiators, then that's what Carolina did. They actually took away a lot of the deep throws. But what happened? They gave up a lot of underneath. We were able to take that, because that's what they gave us. And Kim got off in a different way. He got over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. And when you watch the game, you see he was a mean beast running in between those tackles, picking up, turning out 4 or 5 yards, 6 yards to carry. So I think the balance is what I think it will be the biggest challenge that opposing teams and opposing defensive coordinators will have to contend with our team.
All right, final question. Now you've got some pretty big matchups coming up. Your next game is going to be against the Atlanta Swarm at home. You've got the Aztecs, the Renegades, the Roughnecks, the Gamblers. You're going to face the Skyhawks again. You've got the Crabs, the Sparrows, another meeting with the Swarm, and then you're going to end the year against Queen City, the Corsairs. So some very interesting matchups there. Is there any specific one or two that you've circled on your calendar?
Yeah, well, we're loving the rivalry with the Skyhawks. So anytime we see the Skyhawks, it's going to bring out the best in this team. For whatever reason, the two of us, we just want to beat each other, period, on the field. We want to really, go at it. And that's kind of evidenced by the play. We had a couple of players get knocked out of our game this last game.
Yeah.
Just bringing it. The physicality is there. So anytime, we're going to go to their house, Skyhawks is going to be circled. And, the only other game, of course we want to win, and we're going to try to bring it for every week. But the only other game I would think that we're kind of looking forward to is that opportunity against the Sparrows. Last season, they definitely sparrowed us, with that Swing City.
Yeah.
And I take the hit on that because I tried something different. I actually have a very specific game plan to deal with that, the swing pass, and I abandoned it because I knew what Jennings can do, being that he was a former Pride player, and I don't want Jennings to come back into the field and really take it to us, and I gave up too much. So I'm just looking forward to, I think, that Sparrows matchup to have my head right for that one. And so that, I would say those two are the couple that we really are kind of looking forward to.
Well, Professor Goodin, I love the fact that you like to take risks and to take chances. You are absolutely one of my favorite people here in the SFL, and ever since the first time we talked, I just instantly knew what a great person you were and are, and I thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast.
Oh man, thanks for the kind words. You might be buttering me up because we got a play coming up, so it might be working. We'll see. I have to get T-Pat to calm me down a little bit. Thanks for the kind words, sir.
Well, hey, you don't need it, but good luck to you, T-Pat, and the rest of the Pride Nation, and I hope that you have a great season, just not one better than me.
I'm with you.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Stephen.
I'd like to thank Frank Goodin, man. One of my most favorite people here in the SFL. If you don't know him, get to know him. He's a great guy. And I want to wish him and his Tallahassee Pride team all the success in the world this season. Now to the final segment of the show, the Postscript. P.S. Before I start this segment, let me clarify one thing. I speak only for myself. Nothing I ever say on this podcast is as a representative of the Simulation Football League. There are some stellar individuals that run this league, and I would never presume to speak for them. With that said, let's talk about the word entitlement. One definition is the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment, even if they are undeserving of it. I think we have an epidemic of entitlement in the SFL right now. Unfortunately, for some, there simply is no cure. But for those of us who love the SFL, we must start combating those negative voices that are fueled by undeserved and unearned entitlement. Those individuals who take and take and take, but rarely give. Recently, the league decided to discontinue SFL Red Zone after only 1 week, in lieu of a similar format to what we had last season. Obviously, those in the know understand the reasons behind that decision and have shown overwhelming support through these changes. I applaud each of you. But make no mistake, I believe an element of entitlement played a part in this move. Some individuals simply don't like change. Others didn't fully understand the concept until it actually happened. We all know individuals that hate everything just because. These are the types who call for change and often complain, but do nothing themselves to better the league. They liked it better like this, they'd love to see it like this, but they never volunteer to do anything, and they can't even be bothered to watch the SFL regularly. These types of individuals can be cancerous when it comes to an endeavor fueled by passion. And though most of these types eventually burn themselves out of the league, the damage they can inflict in a short amount of time is devastating. I believe we've seen evidence of that here in the first 2 weeks of the season. Unfortunately, entitled, self-serving, destructive individuals will always exist. There's no getting around them. But that doesn't mean we are powerless to fight them. The overwhelming positive support the league received this week is proof we can fight those negative voices. And we can do so by being more vocal about our love and support of this league. We, and I'm talking to myself here as well, must be more vigilant to respond to these types of individuals, who are often the most vocal and the most moronic, with positivity. And not just one of us, but an overwhelming amount. Several voices can drown out even the loudest of idiots. For owners, this means squashing such destructive talk in our team channels. For those who are consistently on Slack, let's be sure we are setting the best example possible in support of the league. If you're listening to this, then you likely love the SFL as much as I do, maybe more. Let's be vocal about our love for this league and defend her when those negative, entitled voices rise up. I know you may feel different than I do, and that's fine. That's simply my solution to the problem. What's yours? Once again, thank you for listening. Have a great week, and I hope to chat with you again soon. Bye.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.